I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
Schmack-a-macabre, it's time for the only news that matters with some very sad news. His former Metal Church drummer Kirk Arrington has died at 61. It's an unexpected illness, they said, and Metal Church came out and said, "We just received the sad news. Kurt Arrington passed away this morning due to health issues. Rest in peace, brother. See you on the other side." And man, what a great drummer this dude was. Man, listen to that first album. The first album is always going to be my favorite. I don't think they'll ever top it because that album's just way too good. But just about every album after the first one is great quality metal. And I'd like to do a little tribute not only to Kurt, but to Metal Church in general. I mean, the first two albums with David Wayne, my God, they're untouchable. That first album is just perfection. And the funny story about that first album for me was I saw it in record stores for a while and I always thought it was a metal compilation album. And I never picked it up. You know, I turned around and saw Highway Star. I guess I didn't focus on the other songs on there or thought the other songs were from bands I didn't know. So I never bought the album till my friend had it on cassette. And I was like, oh, that's a band? I always thought that was a compilation. And man, when I heard that cassette, I went out and bought the vinyl. Because it's one of the greatest metal debuts ever. So underrated and amazing. And they follow it up with The Dark. An amazing album as well. Very, 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 very metal, man. The title track, Start the Fire, Ton of Bricks, Watch the Children Play, Western Alliance. I mean, I can go on and on. That is an amazing album. And unfortunately, the last one with David Wayne at that time. The Dark is also the very first CD I ever bought, along with Zeppelin 2 and Are You Experienced by Hendrix. And CDs were not cheap back then. I bought this when it was new. But yes, it was the first compact disc I've owned that was metal. And then they came back with Blessed in Disguise with their new singer Mike Howe, who was a great album. I mean, I prefer the David Wayne stuff, but Fake Healer, Badlands, there's some good stuff on Spell Can't Be Broken. It's still a solid killer metal album, followed by The Human Factor, which was a little more accessible, but it still had, you know, the punchy metal. I mean, I'm not too crazy about this album, but, you know, it has its moments. But then, the next one, oh my God, what were they thinking with this album cover? Hanging in the Balance, what were they thinking with this album cover? The music inside this horrible album cover is awesome. Gods of Second Chance, The Conductor. And man, there's a song on this album called End of the Age, which to me is the most epic Metal Church song. It's amazing. It goes through amazing journeys. It's mellow, acoustic-y, then it gets super heavy and super fast. And the lyrics are just genius. It's one of my favorite. It's definitely my favorite song that they did with Mike Howe. And he sings on it amazingly. And I think this is a really great album. Hanging in the Balance. It's just, man, that album cover, what the hell? So this is 93. Album didn't do much. Grunge and all alternative came in. So Metal Church would not make another album till 1999, where they reunite with David Wayne. And the album's called Masterpiece. And when I went out and bought this, excited that David Wayne was back, I was very disappointed by this album. I gotta say, I'm not a fan of Masterpiece. This is the one album I would say in their whole discography I never go back to. I gave it a shot like maybe 3-4 years ago one more time, and I was like, no. But I'm keeping it in my collection because I'm a completist. So the reunion didn't last, and David Wayne made an album called Metal Church. The band is just called Wayne. And I highly, highly recommend that album. That album's amazing. I also like the Reverend stuff. He did some The World Won't Miss You, an EP. Some good stuff. I actually got to see Reverend. I'd never seen Metal Church with David Wayne, but I at least got to see the man in Reverend. Also want to bring up the guitar player in that Wayne album, Metal Church, Jimmy Bell, is a monster player. I mean, what he does on this album is unbelievably awesome. So then they came back 5 years later with Weight of the World with a new singer called Ronnie Monroe. And man, this is some good stuff. I mean, it's a great album. Very much made up for that last one. Weight of the World is good, and I thought Light of the Dark was just as good. The follow-up. But then after that, the Present Wasteland, it was awesome as well. But it was a little step down from the two before. But I thought the best album they did with Monroe was Generation Nothing. I thought that album absolutely smoked. One of my favorites of theirs. So then Mike Howe came back, and you got X1 or 11 really, and it's a great album. Good stuff. I'm not complaining. Not bad. And the follow-up, Damned If I Do, is the last one they did with Mike Howe, and I thought it was good as well. But unfortunately, Mike Howe passed away, and also the great David Wayne passed away. Such tragedy. And that was the last album they did. So they got a new album coming out called Congregation of Annihilation. I've heard like 2-3 songs up on YouTube, and it's awesome. It's really good. And they got some new guy called Mark Lopez on vocals, and I think it's pretty badass. So this is my little tribute to a criminally underrated metal band out there. Metal Church is awesome. And you know, Kurt is keeping it going, and hey man, as long as he's keeping it going with some kick-ass albums, and you got Stet Howlin on drums now, he's a great drummer. Hey man, I support Metal Church all the way, and this next album sounds like it's going to be awesome, and very sad that we lost Kurt, and it's a tribute to him and the great band he was in, Metal Church, that is still, in my opinion, going strong. So there you go. And thank you for watching, everybody. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And like this video. It's good for the YouTube algorithms. And if you like to donate, I got a PayPal in the description below. So, stay frosty. Listen to Black Sabbath. And smack 'em a gob.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain.
Before we get canceled, check out the Rock and Metal Combat Podcast with me and Wadzilla. We are the Podcast Kings. Link to the podcast is in the description below, and also a link to the YouTube page. Check out older episodes with visuals. And very soon, either Ian and I will learn how to go on YouTube Live. Might be soon. So check out the greatest podcast ever according to Science.com. It's also God's favorite podcast and Satan's favorite podcast as well. So check out the Rock and Metal Combat Podcast before we get canceled.